We've got approximately 1 hour. There's a lot of people who have a lot of questions. I prefer you ask them not singly at the table, but here unless it's private, and we will try to deal with them. In the meantime, I will deal with how you go about fighting for your own rights in the current system. And I'll tell you now, it is so close to impossible, it's not funny. You're going in front of magistrates and judges who are not, they're frauds. They're sitting on acts and statutes which are not law. They can't be law, they aren't signed off by a law called the Governor or Governor General. They can't be signed into law. One thing I haven't told you, and I am about to, is there's about 70% of the laws that come out of the Parliament must be reserved for a Majesty's signature. It's a reservation of powers, and it must happen, and they haven't happened. So you go through and have a look at those laws when the people who have got the Constitution now, read chapter 1, chapter 2 and chapter 3. The first 2 chapters are your Parliament, all your Parliament, state and federal. And chapter 3 is the judicature, which is all your courts. And you'll see what I said in Word. They're sitting in fraud. They're sitting in treason. Now, when I first went to court, in the Supreme Court, to defend myself against a bunch of thieving liars who wanted to steal my patents, I had 446 patents for 4 inventions in every country in the world. They wanted them. It gave a Falcon from about 18 to 24 miles a gallon to almost 90 miles to the gallon by vaporising the fuel into a total gas. It works, still works. I had 4 individual patents. The judge, they only signed, these people who sued me, they were signed up to 1 patent. That patent worked perfect. It was tested, approved, and they signed the patent. They paid for a manufacturing licence, but they wanted the other 2. And in their greed, they thought I wasn't going to allow them, because they bought the licence for the East Coast of America. They thought I wasn't going to allow them to have those licences in relation to those patents. One was the total control of air in a motor with using a hemispherical ball and a hemispherical surface controlled by a spring calculated against the vacuum of the engine. I was the first one in the world to do that. I'm not blowing my own trumpet. The reason I'm telling you this is out of that court case came some hideous, hidden laws. It was in front of Wayne Stewart Martin, the purported Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of Western Australia. Now, they tried everything to steal it. They tried everything to discredit it. And they can't. Anyone who knows me knows I was filling up my 85 XF Falcon at number 1 pump in the 440 Roadhouse in Geraldton, driving up and down the hills to Ithaca Road, which is 25 kilometres, and back, filling the car back up again. It took between 1.9 and 2.1 litres to travel 50 k's. Double the mileage, double the litres, you're still under around 4.2 litres, 100 k's, out of a 250 Falcon motor in a 1,800 kilo car. If you know anything about mechanics and physics, you know that when you vaporise fuel, you get total combustion, 0 emissions and 15.9% carbon dioxide. It is not a pollutant. Trees need it. We are under the level of carbon dioxide in the air we need to grow trees. A physical fact, it's physics. It has to go back to that. When Martin denied me a trial by jury, he took counsel with a lawyer on the other side and he says, oh, it's too much paperwork, you can't do it, can you? Then he ordered my company to stand trial without representation because he said, I'm not a legal practitioner, so you're not going to represent the company. And I said, you're not a judge and I am going to represent my company. You can sit there, shut up and bear it or get out. Your choice. and just stared at him. And he said, I'll hold you in contempt. I said, you can't hold me anyway. I'm an officer, Crown, you are not. Anyway, it dragged on for 9 years and I defeated them. They never got it, they still haven't got it. The last 2 patents, I have redeveloped the system because they destroyed all my patents. It hardened my resolve to fight these creeps and beat them at their own game. What they didn't realise, there was an inbuilt fault in the 3rd and 4th patent. It was in the stability of the hemispherical ball and the hemispherical surface. I'm heating fuel to 240 degrees C, heating air, mind you, not the fuel, bringing it up into a unit, mixing fuel with it, heat exchangers like the air conditioner, hot goes to cold, cold goes to hot. You get freezing cold air, -6 degrees, and boiling hot fuel which bursts into a gas. The mileage is phenomenal, 1,800 to 1,900 kilometres out of a 4-litre Falcon and 64 litres of fuel. Less than, just under 2¼ tanks to go from Geraldton to Melbourne. It works. It has been a huge battle and we're winning. I sat down and we went through the law. We went through the law and I got hold of the Uniform Commercial Code, which all these companies I had up there operate under. And in the Supreme Court, Exhibit 1 was UCC 1308, the declaration of who I was, what my name was, and how only way they could present it. That was my first step of kicking their butts. I had Wayne Martin storm out of the court. He ordered me to present documents to the other side and do an affidavit in support. So I did follow the documents, didn't do the affidavit. When we went in for whatever they call them anyway, it's a transition case, he said, these lawyers are claiming you did the documents, you haven't done an affidavit. I said, no. He said, why not? I said, there's no need to get upset and start shocking in the court. I'm not doing it. An affidavit is a lawful document, can be used in a court of law against you, and I'm not doing it. And he said, oh yeah, but I ordered you to do it. I said, I don't care. You want to have a sook, get out and go and sook out the back. With that, he threw everything off the desk and stormed out and slammed the door. I said, you've abandoned the court, the case is dismissed, and walked out. It took them 3 months to subpoena me back in there. It ended up with a big fight. Who was going to win? My arrogance or his arrogance? And at the end of the day, he lost. He ordered $2.32 million against me so that they could take my patents. But in the meantime, they're setting aside, a person owed me $179,000, so I took it back off him. He paid his debt, but he paid it as a loan to my subsidiary company, which is Kaiway Technologies, and then I transferred it to Glew Technologies as a loan. So when he came after me, I knew what they were going to do. I closed the company, forfeited all the patents and sold them to my subsidiary company to cover the $170,000 debt, and then swapped it into the private, doing the same. Although I couldn't upkeep the patent fees, they were around, I think $230,000 a year. So I lost them. It upsets me. But it's fine. Yeah, I had to deal with all that. They never got them. I've redeveloped the whole system. My wife will tell you. The new system works perfect. I've stabilised the ball. We should be able to get around 2,500 kilometres of 64 litres in an AU fell.
Yes.
And it works. Now, I used the UCC 1-308 to declare my name. I then filed documents against Frank Jasper Proprietary Limited, the company that sued me, because all the time they had me in court, they made application in America to patent my stuff. So I filed the UCC 1-309, 9609,
Yeah.
a claim for $500 million, which stands. They defaulted on it on the 21-day statutory demand. They owe the money, but it allows me to hold them where I want them, so they can't come near me. It is a battle, and you've got to fight it, and you've got to use the law. So if somebody thinks I'm not doing anything, you're wrong. I am. I'm out there, I can lose everything, but I'm not going to. I'm going to win. So what we did in 2018, I filed a notice of seizure under Clause 61 of Magna Carta against 3 lawful tiers of the State Parliament of Western Australia. Everybody said, why'd you do it? Because I can, and because it needed doing, because I'm an officer of the Crown, because I had the authority and power to do it, and I had the balls to stand there and serve it on, and I did. They spat it, too bad, they got it. That's our law, I've used it against them. Magna Carta allowed me to do that. Those documents, along with the notice of seizure filed against the 3 lawful tiers of the Federal Parliament on the 7th of January last year, are all together, all filed in England, served on Scott Morrison, who claims to be a born-again Christian. He's a born-again Freemason. He's nothing but a traitor, a liar, and a fraud, a thief, and he's going to go to jail. Now, people say, I don't want to pay fines, I don't want to pay speeding fines. Yep, I understand that. I don't want to pay rates. Do it, because you can't fight it on your own. You can't. I know you can't. Because I've done it. I've fought them. I've beat them in court because I'm a tenacious person and I get in the face of idiots who think they've got authority and don't. Yes?
Do you think it's beneficial for a person to be an officer of the Crown to do
Yes.
the filing? Okay,
Yeah.
so how does a person become...
Every single one of you can be officers of the Crown. Every single one. We can't do it here. I need to sit down and explain it to you, and we will do that at a later date, and you can be.
Yeah.
All you are is a peace officer, person who upholds peace. You are duty bound there. If you see an indictable offence, you report it to the authorities. If they don't do anything about it, they become party to the
And you're
offence.
upholding the law.
Right.
It is very complex. You've got to know how it works.
Do you have to be conversant
No, you
with
don't
the
have to be fully
Constitution?
conversant with that. You have the authority under 13 and 15F of the Crimes Act to prosecute. But you have under 13 of the Crimes Act, you have the authority as Joe Blow off the street to prosecute against, what do you call it? It's a federal offence under a federal act. So, fraud, treason, that's all federal law. But the big problem you have when you go to the federal court or to the high court, you're vexatious, malicious, and it's an abuse of process. Because they're owned by a finance company. A whole lot of them, the courts and all. Now, what's the name of that company? Where is my Smurf friend? What's the name? Perpetual trustees, isn't it?
Yes.
They own all the courts.
Who owns it again?
Perpetual trustees. But it goes further than that. You have to go and have a look at what they did in 1996. They used an act created in 1973, it's the Anglican Catholic Corporations Act, and took out the Church of England in every state and created the Anglican Church under the Anglican Catholic Corporations Act. But they actually took everything and handed it to the Church of Rome, not the Catholic Church, to the Church of Rome under the New Joint Treaty. You think your GST is wrong? Go to your Bible. You've got to give 10% of your earning to God. What are you doing? Giving 10% of your earning to the Church of Rome. The Pope claims to be God on earth. Sounds stupid, but that's exactly what the 10% is. Howard said when he brought that tax in, I'll remove every other tax. As long as you pay that, so everybody went and paid it. You didn't get it, you still got the taxes. They still crippled our car industry. In 1987, the police department were paying around $8,000 for a brand new V8 Commodore worth about $29,000-$30,000. It's licensed on the road for 12 months, all the lights, sirens and everything in it. And they were selling them for $25,000-$30,000 after doing 60,000 Ks. What was the rest? The tax. Our industry cannot survive because of the tax. Anybody who can buy tyres and cars and things wholesale will know the difference between what we pay and what the wholesale is ridiculous. You can buy the top of the line Toyota Hilux in Thailand where they're built for around $19,000. They're 79 to 80,000 here. Why? What's the difference? If there's no import duties through this free trade agreement, what's copying it? Tax. Tax. It puts it out of your ability to buy anything. And that's what you've got to fight. And that's what pushes me to fight what I'm doing. I know it's a big, hard road, but when I serve the papers on the Prime Minister and the Federal Parliament, I see the three lawful tiers of the federal government. I see every act, statute, rule, regulation and order ever proposed by and presented to the Parliament by the political parties and hold it in a position of fraud until such time it is declared lawful by the Queen and a lawful government of the General. Can't happen.
Did they respond to that?
Yeah, they crap themselves. I got notifications through Slade Brockman and a few others. They're dead scared of what I'm doing.
Great.
So what I did then is I seized the Green Constitution, which I call the mucus one because there's absolutely no value. The bucket of snot. Mucus sounds a little better, so I'll call it mucus. That was created by the political parties after a constitutional convention in 1988 where they admitted to trading unlawfully since 1973. The whole political parties did. So their answer was to produce their own constitution to cover up what they did. So I seized that and hold that in the state of fraud as well until they prove it's something.
Is that the WA one?
No, that's the Commonwealth one, the green one. That's the revised one to take the place of this one. I mean, this was a letter bound, don't worry about that. That's a gift from a friend. The one is over there. That one's supposed to take its place. That's the authorised version by Dr. John Quick and Sir Robert Garran. The trouble is, Sir Robert Garran was the last one to die, and that was in 1957. So either they've gone back and got in the time machine and gone back and got them to sign off on it, or it's a load of crap. I prefer the load of crap, because that's exactly what it is. You know, these people are brain dead, they think we're stupid, and they treat us accordingly. As this gentleman said in relation to the way you speak English and the way it is, we have Pig Latin, we have legalese, we have corporate law, we have maritime law and common law. 5 sections of law. When you go to court, and I understand what you're saying, you've got to have your mind very, very switched on about which one they're actually talking. And they will all the time say, do you understand what I said? No. But I comprehend what you said, and it's a load of crap. And you've got to be prepared to call it exactly what it is. Contempt is an arrogant disregard for the authority and the procedure of the court. HCA 29 of 2009, Lane versus Morrison, Chief Justice French said exactly that. Now, the authority for the court is the Constitution, Chapter 3. The procedure is in Chapter 3. Who's in contempt? They are. Tell them they're in contempt. If you keep talking like that, I'll have you arrested and thrown out of the court. You reckon your name's not that, I'll throw you out of the court and issue a warrant for your arrest. Stand up and say, excuse me, have you just lost your mind? Why would you issue a warrant for my arrest when you chucked me out of court for not being here? And I'm right here in front of you. Get in their face, push the issue. I know they scare people. Some people, they burst out crying, they bolt out of the court and they grab them outside and lock them up on a warrant issue because you weren't there and you actually were. Because they're classing you as a gender-neutral person under the Corporation Act, which is a person, an object, a possession or a thing, under the Corporations Act. That's why they created it. A 2001 Corporations Act.
Well, you're dead. When aren't you? You're dead entity.
When aren't you?
You are dead.
According to them. Sometimes I might smell it when I've been eating a lot of rotten bad eggs and curry, but I'm not. I'm very much alive. The fact of the matter is, we're not dead. We're all living, breathing souls, every single one of us. We have to tell them. There's no document you can get and go and file them in the court. They just look at me and say, really? chuck it in the bin, get out. Stand there and declare who you are. State who you are. And stand on your own ground. As I said, women got more balls than men. Time for men to stand up and be counted and do what they should be doing. Stand up for their family.
Your business, can you? Corporate is business to business. As a living man, you can't do business with a corporation.
Well, you can't be an officer of a corporation, an officer of the Crown, and that's in Sydney City Council versus Reid. Justice Kirby ruled that. Justice French in HCA 44 of 2010 says Magna Carta, habeas corpus, 1688 Bill of Rights, King James Bible, and that is the common law of this country, and it's equally binding now as it was at Federation. So we know our law is there. He had a swipe at him. He always was a believer in the Constitution. He was just in a position he wanted to save his pension, so he blabbed on all the garbage, which is what they do. But once you become conversant within reason of your Constitution, you can pick up the decisions of the High Court, read them and understand a lot of it is truth. You've got to pick out the garbage. And in the words of Chief Justice Latham, we have the authority to ignore it within immunity. They can't touch you because it's made in excess of the authority granted. So what we've got to do as a people in this country is stop saying, she'll be right, get another beer and go watch the footy or whatever else you do. Get off your backside, think of your family, think of your grandkids and fight for them. I had 8 kids until recently. I got 7. I got 12 grandchildren by Christmas. Our family, I'm the second eldest of 14. There's over 400 immediately family, plus all the great and all the rest of them. There's scads of them, in other words, little stickies everywhere. But at the end of the day, I'm fighting for them. I'm fighting for your kids. I'm fighting for everybody here. We need to work together. As I've said to people, sometimes I get tired too, but give me a ring, I'll be there. You can ring me up, those people who come on my Facebook page, I'll talk to them, I'll explain it. Sometimes I don't talk to them for a couple of days. My wife will explain to you, we're pretty busy, I get tired, I'm 72 years old, and we work hard. She tells me to go to sleep in the middle of the night because I'm a lay awake. I usually sleep 4 to 5 hours and then lay awake going through all of this in my head. I put my court cases together in my head before I go to court. So I'm already armed when I go there. Until you can get to that stage, don't go to court because you're fighting something you can't win. Yes?
So I've heard at this time common law has been suspended in Australia, so all legal statutes are being fully enforced.
Well, I think that's why Justice French said they're all in force. You cannot suspend common law.
That's what I thought.
Because you kick out the Crown, which is the Queen. I mean, you got people running around saying they got the Kingdom of Australia, he's the king and all this, and this other nonsense. Blake reckons he's the king, and yet he's got an older brother, so if he was in line for the throne, his older brother would be there first. You get all this crap, and people contact me and they say, oh, he's done this, he's done that. Yeah, where's the documents? And if he's legitimate, how come he hasn't presented? How come the Queen's still there? Read the Constitution. You swear the oath of allegiance to Queen Elizabeth II, her heirs and successors. Heirs are her relatives, successors as anybody that people put into place. So even if she was unlawful, she stands until the people put her out. It's simple. You can't just say, well, you're not in the lineage, so you are. Because the oath contains both heirs and successors, anyone who succeeds after them.
So you swore the same oath to become an officer of the Crown?
To become a police officer, yes. And then the 16th of January 2012, under a Commonwealth public official, the first oath was made me an officer of the Crown, a Commonwealth public officer, as is every person who was in the military. They swore that oath. I don't know how many years ago they took it out, but I know up until the late 60s they did swear that lawful oath.
Still in there in 71. It was still in 71.
Yeah.
Because I did the
So, yes.
So Wayne, there must be more people like you though in Australia that know all this stuff.
Yeah.
One would hope so.
So, can you not all band together and do something?
Get our
You
umbrella
can't
next
band
year.
together, I'll tell you that, because you become a nutter from this group, a nutter from that group. So you've got to stay singly, which means it's difficult. But on the same token, I'm teaching my little gentleman over there, Smurf, Lee. I'm teaching him the Constitution and a whole lot of other people so they can do singly what I'm doing as well. You can form groups of your own, but you can't form with the actual people who know, because they're going to just block you. And they're going to do everything they can. Oh, they do, don't worry. Some of the things they put on me. But if they try to enter my computer, like state security came to me, they took all my guns, didn't threaten anyone, they just decided they wanted them and I couldn't have them anymore. And I gave them access to my computer and my phone. But at the same time, I took my computer to a friend who worked in NASA. So every time they try to enter it without using the password, he sends them a virus. Keep them happy. So now they don't do it. They behave themselves. You can play their game the correct way. Yes.
Earlier on you said that Trump's in the process of breaking the back of the cabal.
Yes.
And I've watched some stuff that showed him go country to country,
Mhm.
basically saying we've got it all, whatever. Everything you just said about the Queen and our Constitution, the real Constitution,
Mm-hmm.
being sort of hinging to her, does that all get obliterated
No.
if all this
No.
other thing happens?
That Constitution and the Federation of the Commonwealth of Australia is indissoluble under the authority of God through God's representative and the monarch. We can reject it. If you go to Lord Coke in a book called Coke on Magna Carta, he said God's law existed before all other law. It is the common law and it exists until we the people take it out. We the people. And that's why our Constitution says we the people. Because it's the people form the Commonwealth. Anyone else?
Why is the Queen regarded as a representative of God?
Why is she?
Yeah.
Because he's the head of the Church of England, the keeper of the faith. That's all in the coronation oath. I didn't set it up. It was set up by the barons. See, everybody says Magna Carta is 1215. No, it's not. It's 1297. You go back in the English law, I take it you're English. I've been back and studied. I've actually got a copy of Magna Carta 1297. King James I took the throne at 9 years old. And by the time he was about 26, 27, he was very conversant with Magna Carta, but he knew it was not lawfully cemented in place because King John signed it, I'll whack your head off. Of course it's not lawful. And people bring that up. So he cemented it into British law in 1297. It is and became part of your constitution. They've tried everything to kick it out and can't. Anne Toomey from the University of New South Wales, I think, I'm not sure, it is there or Melbourne, she said, oh, well, it all evolves. No, it doesn't evolve. Nothing evolves in the Constitution. It remains until we alter it in accordance with 128.
So if Australia became a republic, it would write a new constitution?
Australia can't become a republic.
Why?
It's impossible. We have to petition, we the people have to petition the Queen to get permission to have a vote for a republic because the Constitution is indissoluble. Then, when we get that permission, we then decide what kind of republic we want. Hang on just a sec. You must understand, no politician in this country can propose a republic because they're there serving us. So if they do propose it, it's an oxymoron.
An Irishman might differ.
Well, yeah, you know, the corporate government of Australia can propose a republic, but the people who are elected by the people can't.
But the people can decide to have an uprising between themselves as common people and take away the leadership of the monarch or the dictators or whoever is imposing the laws upon them and come up with a new set of laws that actually serve the people.
We would have to go to the Queen and dissolve the Constitution of the Federation, and that would be have to by application from the people. You couldn't just do it without that.
Yeah, it's
If you did, you could be held to account by the Crown of England and held in treason. So to do it lawfully, you would have to petition the Queen, yeah. There's no other way. Yes.
Yeah, what if the Queen's found guilty of treason? Exactly.
Then she's only the monarch. She loses her position, but they will appoint a new monarch who upholds that, if they want to, upholds the legislation, if they want to. I'll lose my voice. Don't worry about it.
Depends on what they're doing.
The next week. No, look, it is intricate. That's why I say learn chapter 1 and chapter 2 of the Constitution. You'll see how elections are held. The governor, being the executive, has to select a pool of people. When we go to vote in state elections, we can vote for one person for the Legislative Assembly, one for the Legislative Council. There are no boundaries, no electoral boundaries. So even if our state constitution was lawful, which it's not, and all the electoral boundaries are invalid. They are at a federal level until they're put to us and we decide. Because we're the Commonwealth, we decide what the boundaries will be. Other than that, you've got the 12-mile limit, which is the boundary. The only other boundary is your land. Your land is held in fee simple, alienated from the Crown, with a boundary under the Boundaries Act. That's why it applies to the Commonwealth at the establishment of the Commonwealth as a self-governing colony of England. To grasp that is hard, to grasp the fact that the Parliament or the legislature is separate units is hard. Because everybody says the legislature, oh, that's the Legislative Assembly and Legislative Council. No, it's not. It's the Governor and Council who puts the legislation together. It's the lower house that debates it. It's the upper house that agrees it complies with the Constitution. And the last part is the Governor who signs off on behalf of the Queen, accepting that it's a law made pursuant to the Constitution. There's your first two tiers of the judicial process of putting legislation in place. Then it goes to the court, who can determine then whether it is constitutional or not, because that's their right. If it's a court of competent jurisdiction, and they're not. So you bear all that in mind, you think, bugger, what a mess. Sounds like a spaghetti factory gone wrong, but it's not. It's actual simple when you understand chapter 1 and 2 of the Constitution. Because if you're looking for everything in relation to the federal parliament, you look at sections 61 to 68, and it tells you the Governor General elects 10 from the lower house, 8 from the upper. He gives them portfolios. They sit as the Executive Council. They can't vote in Parliament. They're deemed to be biased towards their portfolios. What are these idiots running all over the world, spending millions of dollars, giving it away everywhere, as officers holding different